week 8. This week we are talking about positive coping tools, and we have those today in the form of some strategies. So I hope you have your pens ready and you are going to be taking some notes and jotting down how you can be using these in your life even today, because everything that we're giving you, you can apply absolutely even in the moment. And last week we talked about surrendering to God and actually letting go. But this week we're going to be talking about picking up, not just the armor of God, but also picking up just some more strategies and tools that we can use, practical things.
We are constantly trying to put tools into the hands of our clients. Because we know that the way we've coped in the past, whether it's through alcohol, nicotine, codependency, eating disorders, whatever, that is not, it's been destructive. So today we're going to talk about those ways that you can cope in healthy ways.
Right, and that comes up with scripture as we talk about 1 Corinthians 6:19-20, where we're talking about knowing that our bodies are the temples of the Holy Spirit. And it's where you're realizing you're not just your own, but Jesus paid a pretty high price for us. And he wants our bodies to be pure, to be healthy, to be strong, to be able to do that. And obviously there's illness, there's brokenness, there are so many things that interfere with that. But today our strategies are specifically designed to help counterbalance some of that weight and damage so that you'll have these tools moving forward as we dig into this healing journey a little bit more. And so has that played a role for you, Jenny, in the process of recovery, having healthier coping mechanisms and strategies to work with?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I would not be able to be sitting here right now if I did not have a whole host of coping tools and strategies that I employ on a daily basis. And Paula, would you like to talk about the first one that we have today, which is emotional scheduling?
Emotional scheduling, that's one of those things that I didn't get taught. It was a strategy that I think God helped me come to because I was a single mom. I was sole supporter for my 3 boys, and I was trying to dig into counseling and my healing journey because I had hit a place where it was just impossible for me. And so digging deep into recovery and healing, digging up all the old stuff while you're a single parent. Oh, and by the way, homeschooling. My 3 boys with full-time job and several part-time jobs that I needed to make ends meet. And insane to do that when you have super strong emotions coming from deep places of brokenness that all come to the surface. And I was like, God, I can't do this. I really can't do this. Help. And he just kind of showed me that I could schedule around the processing and working through things based on the intensity of the emotions. So I couldn't do strategic planning when I was in emotional overload. But I could fold laundry. I could do dishes. I could play Uno with my children while I was struggling, and realizing that there were different areas of strategic planning or capacity versus the things we do on kind of autopilot that we can do, the things that interact with other people where it has a higher emotional content versus the things we can do quietly by ourselves. And as I started figuring out what those were and started understanding how much bandwidth I had to handle the different areas, then I started planning out my schedule the best I knew how, even at my job. The things that I could just do automatically, filing and basic things that didn't take a huge ton of concentration. I could do those when I was really deeply struggling emotionally, but I definitely couldn't do the bookkeeping and the really precise, exact strategic stuff at that point. So I know that you girls have also had times where you've had to adjust what you could do when based on your schedule.
Well, melting down in the middle of a session with a client is probably not the best place for me to have an emotional meltdown. But if, when dealing with other people, there's transference and countertransference and things that other people, your friends, your pastors, whoever, they might say something that might trigger something in you. And so for me, if I'm working with a client and they said something that might have triggered something in me emotionally, I had to wait until the end of the day, or at least that 10 minutes in between sessions, to have some time to schedule that emotional release, because it's really important that we get those emotions out, because as we have all discussed in the previous weeks, that we don't need to stuff it, because stuffing leads to diseases and hearts and issues and high blood pressure and all sorts of different things. So making sure that we schedule that time to get it out is so important.
Yes. And then those times when I would go to my counselor and then come out and feel like I had just opened up my heart and opened up, been really vulnerable, and then said, okay, now what do I do? That's when I know, okay, I can do filing. And those are the times when I would schedule the recovery of those emotional places. So I know I'm going to have a big vulnerable place in this part of my day. So now let's schedule those easy things for the emotional recovery of that, because there is, the cortisol and the hormones that can be running through us during those times. So it's really good to try and schedule that around, and then even sometimes, scheduling my meals around that as well. So I know that I have enough protein to get me through, that time, because it does eat up a lot of calories.
Yes.
And walking around your emotional tense times, or your art class around your emotionally tense times. Like for me, there's all these other things I can do, but if I don't have time to do them because I've scheduled things I can't do during that time, then it's a problem. So for me, it was just looking at the whole week and looking at the things that had to get done at work, the things that had to get done at home, the time with the children, and trying to balance the difficulty level around the emotional difficulty level, so that I was being the most productive possible, even though I might be useless in one kind of thing. So many times I could do something else that was easier.
Giving yourself grace.
That's exactly what I was about to say, Jenny. Extending that grace towards each other. I think that's you have to give yourself grace, because we can schedule it. I was a master at scheduling. I had a very tight schedule, seeing at least 11 clients a week, which meant 22 hours of basically face-to-face therapy, which was crazy. Intense trauma victims that I was working with. Wow. So I had to be flexible, because sometimes my schedule got all off because of my clients or because of different things that would come up.
Right. Life happens.
Right. So you have to have grace. So you can definitely attempt to schedule it, but remember that you have to have grace in the process.
Yes. Just because you're not on all the time or adhering to that schedule that you originally set doesn't mean that you're a failure. It just means you got to go with the flow.
And we've already said to throw perfection out the window. So.
Right, and to throw all of that, gotta perform, because we do have life and we do have responsibilities and we do have things that have to be done. But in so many places, it's this is a super, super hard thing, and I need grace. With my kids, it was the do-it-yourself times. And they knew I would have things prepared so they could do it themselves. But when I needed that recovery time, at different points, I would be like, okay, y'all, this is the do-it-yourself time, and that might be a time for them to play a little bit more electronics, or for them to be a little bit more self-sufficient, to give me recovery time. And that goes to our next strategy, 13, which is prayer and meditation. Because it's hard to do the prayer and meditation in the middle of 3 boys jumping off the walls. Just telling y'all. I don't know about anybody else, but for me, that was a bit of a struggle. Yeah. So scheduling in that time and looking at prayer and meditation as a way to kind of just take the overload and the chaos and just bring it all down, so that it was so much more quiet and peaceful. And Ivana, I know you did a lot of the focusing on that with the last few months of scripture and things that God had given you that made a big difference, right?
Yeah, when he said to read the Bible in 90 days, I was like,
go on!
I can't even, I think I said many, many times throughout those 90 days. But it was that renewing my mind, and on the days that I felt like I couldn't, Thank goodness we have Bible apps. We'll read the Bible to you. So on those days, but it was really, some days I would have worship music in one earbud and scripture in the other earbud, helping refocus and renew my mind as I just went through a sabbatical. And so having that time to just reset and refresh in Him.
And you did it.
I did do it.
Congratulations.
Yay.
Yes. I'm not sure I would have the stamina for that in 90 days. I have read through the Bible in a year, but 90 days, man, I'm impressed.
I'm impressed.
I would need some heavy prayer to get me through that for sure. And all that listening. And I think that the quiet, I've raised an only child. I love the quiet. It definitely, there's just something about it that brings me right back to center, brings me back home to just those quiet times. And that's really when I start to bring in the meditation, not the Eastern meditation necessarily, but the idea that I'm listening to God and I'm opening myself up to Him and saying, okay, God, I've talked at you for a little while. I've told you what I want, and now I leave that at your feet, and I say, okay, what is it that you want to say to me today? I am your servant, and I am listening, and I am open. And some days, He doesn't say much more than, I'm here. And other days, He wants to really chat with me and convict me about certain things. But I really enjoy those meditative, quiet times. What about you, Paula?
I was going to say, it makes a difference when there's so much in a relationship where you're building communication. So people think of prayer as saying a formal prayer or getting down on their knees and having a prayer time. And for me, yes, those are a part of prayer. But so much prayer, I mean, the Bible says to pray without ceasing. It means you don't stop praying. Well, how do you not stop praying? And for me, it was like having an earbud, Bluetooth device or something in your ear where you've called somebody and you just leave them on the line and you are going about your daily life, just running conversation with them on the earbud that's right there. And in my head, I know y'all laugh at me sometimes because you're sitting there looking at my eyes and going, are you praying back there? Because I'm having this running conversation with Him, and it's really helpful when you can do that in a quiet place, in a place of meditation, like you and a friend going to a park and sitting on a bench and just quietly spending time together and talking back and forth and kind of having a God date.
And I've never been able to do the every morning wake up and do the prayer or do the devotional, and I've just never been that kind of person. I know that some people they say that their children will know whether or not they've done it that morning.
Because of how they behave.
Right, because they need it. And I think, and that was something early in recovery that I absolutely needed. That was the first thing that I did very early on. Was I picked up a devotional and said, okay, I need my scripture right there. I need to be praying, communicating with God first thing to get my day off right. But I am just thankful that He meets me, even if I do it at the end of the day or in the middle of the day, whenever I'm able to finally, or in the car. Love my time in the car with God, absolutely. That's one of those times where I'm not just in prayer, but I'm also doing strategy number 14, which is giving Him gratitude. Just being able to see the sky for me is one of those moments where I'm like, oh, thank you, God, because it's a reminder for me that I am small and He is so big, that He can carry me. He is so much bigger than my little life, my little home, my little car, that He is so much bigger. He's as big as the universe. And I'm just grateful that He's got me in the palm of His hand and I don't have to be worrying about that.
And they can be such small things that we're thankful for. I used to have an hour drive to work. And so I would do actually strategy number 13 and 14. There was some prayer, there was meditation. I listened to podcasts, but then I'd also go through my list of gratitudes. And some days it was, God, just thank you for waking me up today. I don't know what today's gonna bring, but thank you for at least waking me up. Or, thank you for the blue skies or the green grass in the spring that's really nice after you've experienced a ton of winter.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, and I would have a checklist on the gratitude thing because that was such a help to me in places where I was having a hard time with so much negative, broken, hurtful stuff that was just around me all the time. And I would go down a really simple checklist of, okay, God, I thank you that I woke up with a roof over my head. God, I thank you that I have food for me and the boys for breakfast. God, I thank you that I have a voice that I can use, and I have eyes to see, and I have 2 hands. I mean, seriously.
Not everybody has that.
Not everybody has
That's
2
not on my
hands.
checklist.
But it's going through those different simple things that we can be grateful for, because just like you can focus on the things to thank Him for, you can also focus on complaining and whining and moaning and groaning just as much, especially when there's a lot of heartbreak. But I think even people with happy lives, many times their focus is on what they don't have, on their lack, on their brokenness, on the hard stuff. And they, you can't be grateful and complaining at the same time.
Right.
Like you kind of have to choose one or the other. And so choosing gratefulness is a way not to be choosing to complain and to be feeling sorry for yourself and to be focusing on the pain and the hardship. So gratefulness is an antidote, as a tool that really changed my perspective for the day, has been absolutely huge in my life.
I have had many, many clients make gratitude list, because you do get stuck in this negative self-talk, and it's like, okay, what can I be thankful for? There's got to be something you're thankful for. When working with teenagers, that's a little bit more difficult sometimes because they're egocentric and they don't think about anything else except themselves.
Yes.
But that's just the way they're wired.
Yes.
And that's just how God made them. So there's been many times that I've been working with teenagers, and we're like, there's got to be at least something you're thankful for. And it's that process of helping them rewire their brains and moving from a negative self-talk into positive self-talk, which is why these are positive coping tools.
And I have 2 teenagers. I know a little bit about what you're talking about in that, because when you get a negative perspective, sometimes that's all you can see.
Yeah.
Right.
And you really are thinking, what am I thankful for? I can't think of anything. And that's where I've had a list before that I go, oh yeah, I am thankful, a roof over my head. That simple as a reminder, because there's always, always, always things that we can be thankful for.
And the enemy as well is always trying to gear us towards a pain perspective, that perspective of lack. You don't have this, you don't have this, you don't have that. This is, you might have a pain in the neck literally one day, and that's all you can think about is that one thing. And so this is also another way that we can be fighting the little nagging things from the enemy that he just kind of wants to.
And with social media in the palm of our hands, it's really easy to get wrapped up in that comparing to other people, because they seem to have it all together, but Facebook is obviously just their highlight reel of what's going on in their life.
Right.
But if we get stuck in that comparing part, we can stop and go, okay, what am I thankful for? What's going on in my life that I can have gratitude? And then we have strategy number 15, which is bilateral processing. And I think all 3 of us really enjoy bilateral processing.
Yes.
So bilateral processing, I'm going to give you a quick science lesson and keep this super simple, is bilateral really means involving 2 sides, which means that we're involving both sides of our brain, right brain and left brain. Okay? So basically, in counseling, I've done a couple of different types of bilateral stimulation. And one of it is through art therapy. And so having somebody if they're right-handed, use their left hand. That wouldn't really work for you, Jenny.
I could do it.
Could you scribble?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Give me a crayon.
But even if it's just a scribbling, they're using both sides of their brain as they're processing. Or the way we really like to enjoy bilateral processing is walking. We go for lots of walks. And basically, we're just going to engage both sides of our brains, including the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere. And it's just going to help our bodies regulate and our minds regulate. So we have that movement because we're walking or we're scribbling. There's some kind of movement involved. And then you can also process and verbally and share that information that's going on inside you. Again, it's all about getting the stuff out, not stuffing it down.
So Jenny could dance it off.
Totally. Because she is a dancer.
She's a dancer, so.
Yeah, I did that for a lot of years. Yes, absolutely. This is one of the ways that I naturally try and express, and it does, especially when I'm listening to worship music alone in my house. it's just another way to express, and it does help me to become a little bit more settled, maybe make those connections of, oh, maybe I'm feeling this because of my past, and oh, maybe that's how it's all connected, and I don't have to just sit and figure it out and get it all figured out in my head. I can actually get up and move and keep it moving.
You're connecting your thinking side of your brain and the feeling side of your brain.
Yes.
Which is what we want. And it's that sensory integration. You're using the physical movement, and again, you can use the mind and your words.
Right, which is why walk and talks are such a great idea.
Walk and talk and prayer. This is
Yes.
body, soul, and spirit
Yes.
all together.
Yes.
One more time. Integrating them all.
And it does really help when you're sitting there. I would start getting this tension building up and just having a hard time. Just
Anxiety.
It would be anxiety. It would be anger. It would be just emotional intensity overload. And I found out if I could just go do something with that, actually move and do that would help release that buildup of tension. And usually, if I had a friend to talk to on the phone or in person, if I had a way to turn it into a relational thing, and it might be the prayer time with God, but things would just start clicking into place and making sense, and I would start understanding what it was that was triggering that buildup of tension and that buildup of angst or frustration or whatever it was, and be able to come back to a place of more stability and peace, which was huge. And it wasn't damaging to me to be able to go work it out that way. And that gets us to another part, which is self-care. That's strategy number 16 is self-care. And we've got to be in tune with where we're at to be able to actually care for ourselves in the temple that we are. And we have a bunch of different ways that we need to focus on taking care of ourselves, right?
Because our body is a temple. So we're going back to that, taking care of your body. And that can be anything from just daily living,
Showers,
taking showers,
Brushing your teeth. We are
Washing
on the
your
same page
face.
today.
yes,
Yeah.
getting enough sleep.
eating properly, the exercising well so that your body is having a chance to get stronger, doing things that are just going to help you be healthier, stronger, more intentional about care. And I know when I would be in that really broken little girl place with trauma and everything, one of the problems was I did not want to take care of myself. And it can be extreme to where you're wanting to deliberately harm yourself, or it can just be a lack of care. So you're not wanting to do the basic self-care activities or things like brushing teeth. And I mean, that seems so minor, but it is a part of taking care of the temple that God's given you.
Sometimes that's all you can do when you're feeling completely oppressed in that depression. All we want to do is lie there and ignore all of our needs. Maybe not eat, not sleep, not do all of those things. And sometimes for me, it was the only thing that I could do was get up and wash my face or get up and brush my teeth. I couldn't get dressed, maybe. But I did one, if I could at least do one thing, I could say, okay, I've done something. And maybe tomorrow I'll do, something, again, baby steps, trying to make sure that I can do everything I can.
Absolutely. And then we also have a Bloom Forward journal.
We do, and that gives it's a 90-day workbook, journaling type of thing with really simple ways to renew our minds specifically and focus on actually tracking and keeping up with a lot of these strategies right here, because you have a few little questions to answer in the morning, a few little questions to answer in the evening, and a core value devotional that you kind of just think about and meditate on over a week. And it doesn't take that much of your time, but it does have you stay accountable to yourself on praying instead of worrying, on taking scripture and writing it down so you're bringing it into your muscle memory. Little things like what you're grateful for in the morning and in the evening, but not big, messy, complicated stuff. Like 2 things you're grateful for. And we even have lists in there, don't we?
Yes.
that help answer these questions when
Yes.
we're struggling with them. And how did we create this tool?
I think by living it.
Yeah, by taking what did I need, what was helpful for me, what were those little things that I could do that were manageable,
Right.
that had the biggest impact. Taking those things, putting them together in the morning and in the evening, those lessons that were the most impactful for my journey, things like gratitude that we could be focusing on for the whole week. And that really, that repetition is really what builds those habits and makes those muscles stronger.
And I also wanted to say part of the self-care is doing activities and things that are fun and enjoyable. For me, it's kayaking, which is also part of my bilateral processing. But you know, when you live on a lake, it's really easy to do that. I don't live on a lake anymore, so it's not as easy. But I still make time and I schedule that because it's important that I get out in nature, or maybe it's going for a hike. Again, bilateral processing. So I get to incorporate two strategies of self-care and bilateral processing. But it's going and doing something artsy. For me, I like to tear things apart and reconstruct them, like a kitchen table, or whatever it is that is enjoyable to you. Something fun.
Gardening is one of the things that I did. Pulling out weeds. There's something very therapeutic about pulling out weeds, I think.
That's pretty awesome. For me, I laugh because being a volunteer, where I got to do demolition work on a house that was being rebuilt, that was therapeutic.
Yeah.
I got to work out a lot of angst and frustration, but it's funny because there's the creative side, journaling, writing poetry, artistic side like that, or there's drawing or just coloring, where you're just coloring between the lines. I know we've done it as activities and just sit there listening to worship music and coloring out pieces, talking sometimes, but doing it individually, doing it with friends and hanging out, but having ways that, for me, that creative, beautiful color, and even the journal has the drawings and stuff in it that you can color and draw on and bring that sense of beauty and art, because that can really soothe your soul and give you some beauty mixed in with your life that way.
And help you de-stress.
Yes.
Get it out.
Because we think it's so important that you focus on, as we keep saying, your body, your spirit, and your soul. And so you need a self-care plan that encompasses the triune being that you are. And we will see you back next week.